What's going on, everybody? It's the Archaic Eagle here today, and I am back with Kyle is Famous. So, if this is your first time seeing this game, I'm going to go ahead and link you to my previous Kyle is Famous video. That way you can kind of get caught up and see what's going on. But basically, Kyle is Famous is a text-based choose-your-own-adventure game where you play as Kyle and try and prepare him for the biggest interview of his career. Now, I've already completed 2 of the different endings, but there are way more endings that can come up, and they're all based on the different things that you do throughout Kyle's days. So, I'm going to go ahead and quit talking, and we're just going to hop right in. Kyle wakes up. He is famous. We're just going to skip ahead. All right, Kyle's first decision of the morning was made wisely. All right, we're going to get out of the bed. And we're going to go ahead and get dressed. We're going to choose an outfit. And we're going to go with a suit of armor. All right, after much squeezing and sweating, Kyle managed to wrap the metal suit around his dumpy self. So we're all dressed up in our best suit of armor. Now it's time to prep for this interview. Kyle made his way over to his desk and sat down. We're going to write up some notes for our interview. First question, of course. We're going to go with, is your mother a mother? Because why not? Seems like the best choice. Kyle wrote down his second question. Eeny, meeny, miny, what are some diet tips? Because obviously if I'm real dumpy, this suit of armor is going to get really heavy. So we're going to go with that. Finally, third question. You know what? Let's see what this lady's funniest story is. We're going to go with that. Final question. Do you ever feel guilty? That's a good one. Let's go with that. Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got it from his desk. And we still have 17 hours, which means we have 17 more choices or actions that we can make. We're going to go back to our room. We're going to exit. We're actually going to go outside. Kyle walked out in the middle of the road and took a long, pondering look around him. We're going to go to the tech store because steampunk futuristic armor knight seems like the best choice of options here. Totally what I should be spending my time on. Kyle walked into the clean white tech store and was greeted by Techno Jim, an elaborate cutout mascot with flashing lights. We're just gonna take Techno Jim. That's all I want. Quickly, before the attendant could acknowledge him, Kyle grabbed Techno Jim by the shoulders. Finding that Techno Jim's cardboard feet were bolted to the ground, Kyle started to pull upwards forcefully. After several tugs, Techno Jim broke free, leaving the foot and one leg behind. Kyle glanced at the attendant, who was staring bewildered, and ran outside. I mean, I would be too. All right. Now, we are going to go visit our downstairs neighbor. Kyle approached his downstairs neighbor's door and knocked. A middle-aged woman named Gabby answered the door. She looked at Kyle expectantly. Let's eat Gabby, I guess. Kyle unhinged his jaw. Kyle unhinged his jaw and swallowed Gabby whole. Job done. Kyle returned to the middle of the street. Kyle walked out into the middle of the road and took a long, pondering look around him. We're just gonna go back to there, go back to our bedroom, and scavenge. Kyle quickly crouched down on the floor, realizing his immediate need for resources, but our time's up. Now time to see how the interview goes. Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here. Now, we have a choice. Do we interview the chick or do we interview the cardboard cutout? Let's see how she thinks I look in this suit of armor. Let's go with her." Kyle responded, "We're going to be polite." "And I as well, Rachel," Kyle answered Kyle, because English is really hard for me with my new bachelor's degree and everything, extending his hand in greeting. "You are a most welcome guest." We're going to shake hands. after other mild exchange of pleasantries. What? After other mild exchange of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle." Introducing Rachel. Tonight, I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction. Become Rachel May. Oh, we can take this a completely different route, but let's not. We're going to play this one kind of straight, except for that whole point where I unhinged my jaw and ate my downstairs neighbor. Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. "Hello, Kyle," she said. "I am glad to be here." In response, Kyle collapsed on the floor. From a combination of stressful preparation and not eating anything, but I ate a whole person, Kyle had passed out. Nobody in the studio quite knew what to do with him. They began to poke Kyle in the back to see if he moved. After a while, they ended the broadcast, shut off the lights, and went home. Kyle was left face first on the floor. Well, that's kind of a bummer. Kyle prepared by starving himself. Well, that didn't quite go according to plan. So through the power of editing, we're just gonna reset everything back to where we were, and we're gonna try this, but actually eat something. All right, so through the power of editing, we are back. Now, unfortunately, I wasn't able to go and eat my neighbor, but I did get the suit of armor. I did actually eat something this time. I wrote my notes and I stole techno gems. So let's try this interview again. Blah, 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 blah. Hurry to the set. Rachel May. Approach her. Be nice. Answer politely. Shake hands. More. And here we are. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle. Tonight I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction." Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. "Hello, Kyle," she said. "I am glad to be here." "Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss tonight, so we might as well dive right in." "I am very ready," said Rachel with a winning smile. Kyle produced the notes he had taken earlier. We're going to start with, is your mother a mother? Because that seems to be the most pressing question I could have come up with. "So," said Kyle, "my mother is my mother. My mother's mother is her mother, and my mother's mother, and many mothers have mother's mother's mother. Is your mother a mother?" Rachel went to answer and stopped. "I believe," she said eventually, "that I should answer yes." Kyle asked another question. "What are some diet tips, oh wonderful Rachel May?" "Rachel, you managed to keep such a thin and healthy figure," said Kyle. "What is your best diet tip?" "Well, a good diet starts with a plan," answered Rachel, "and don't break it. Cheat days can turn into a habit." "But," she continued, "that doesn't mean a midnight snack here and there isn't allowed." She smiled. Kyle looked at his flabby self, underneath his suit of armor, of course, and decided not to comment and moved on. Kyle asked another question. "Do you feel guilty?" "Rachel, do you feel guilty?" asked Kyle, hitting her with a hard question. Rachel raised her eyebrows. "About what specifically, Kyle?" "The things in general. Life." Rachel did not answer immediately. "I think," she said, "that everyone has things they regret, but those things aren't always what others would expect." Rachel folded her hands in her lap and didn't have anything more to say. Well, that's a bummer. Kyle asked another question. "What's your funniest story?" "You've been involved in a lot of things, a lot of different things," said Kyle, "but what's your funniest story?" "Well, that's a great question, Kyle," said Rachel. "I think the story I always remember is the first time I tried to make dinner for my family. In the soup I made, I swapped out the water with milk and tipped the whole jar of salt into the pot. While my family was sick from trying to eat it, I swiped their things and locked myself in my room." Rachel laughed elegantly. Kyle decided to move on. After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper. "Well, Rachel," he said, "I think that's all I was planning on asking you. If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask you something in return?" asked Rachel, smiling one more time. "Why exactly did you wear a suit of armor today?" Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. The broadcast was over. Kyle returned home knowing the interview had went well. But as he lay in bed and drifted to sleep, he felt that perhaps something was still missing. Kyle prepared very well. Well, that's a bummer. That's basically the standard one. So, editing magic time, and we're going to try again. Kyle's first decision of the morning was made wisely. We're going to get out of bed. Kyle exited his bed and took a quick glance around his room. Well, we need to get dressed. We're going to choose an outfit, and we're going to go with a slick suit. Give him that impression that I know what I'm talking about. Kyle miraculously crammed his dumpy body into the suit, much better than he was able to cram it into a full suit of armor. The chest pockets were filled with random knickknacks. Kyle returned to the center of the bedroom. Sit at desk. We're going to write some interview questions. We're going to start off with, am I a mother? Because of course, why not? Next up, have you ever eaten a raw egg? Third question, what's your funniest story? And finally, are you guilty? Kyle ripped his page of notes out of the notebook and got up from the desk. Kyle made his way over to his desk and sat down. We need to eat, because apparently if we forget to do that, we pass out. So let's eat. Move to kitchen. Kyle walked to the center of the kitchen. I'm going to check my pantry. Kyle wanted to access the pantry, but found it was locked with a small keyhole. Why would you lock yourself out of your own pantry? Anyway, Kyle walked to the center of the kitchen. I'm going to have to get something out of the fridge. We're going to eat the crust on the fridge wall, because of course not. Kyle started scraping the streaks of crud and spots of black mold off of the walls of his fridge. After balling up the filth from the sides of the fridge, Kyle bit into the crusty, moist ball. Ugh. Nothing about that sentence sounds fun. After several minutes of chewing later, Kyle finished chewing and swallowed the ball whole. Back to the kitchen. It is time for us to leave, but we need to go pick up our pal, Techno Jim. We're going to steal Techno Jim. And it is time for our interview. We've seen this before. Kyle hurried to the set. He sat across from the woman. Kyle approached her. They smiled. Good evening, Kyle, she said, looking him in the eyes. I've been looking forward to being here. But she's just not interesting enough. So we're going to interview the cardboard cutout instead. Kyle roughly shoved Rachel out of her seat and placed Techno Jim in her stead. Hello, Techno Jim, said Kyle. I'm going to interview you today. Kyle grasped Techno Jim's hand and tried to shake it, but instead tore it off of the cardboard frame. Kyle's producer, sensing viral media, pulled the bewildered Rachel out of the frame and motioned for the crew to go live. Cameramen moved, lights flashed, and suddenly the studio was on the air. Hi, I'm Kyle, said Kyle, of course, and tonight I'm going to be interviewing a very special guest. He pointed to Techno Jim using the dismembered arm. Techno Jim started to smoke from the heat of the lights. Would you like to introduce yourself? Asked Kyle. Knowing Jim would probably not speak, Kyle took it upon himself to be his voice as well. Hi, Kyle, he said, raising the pitch of his voice. My name is Rachel May, and I'm a very special guest. Rachel's expression of confusion turned to shock. Well, Rachel, you look way too thin and absolutely terrible, and you should feel ugly. Kyle gave Jim a meaningful stare. Well, Kyle, he said, I sure wish I could look like you. Techno Jim burst into flames. Instantaneously, the sprinkler system initiated. Curtains of water poured down from the rafters. Within seconds, the production equipment was doused in water. The set was soon aburst with electrical fires. Kyle's crew abandoned their post as cameramen and sound mixers tried to put the fires out. English is still hard. As the crew scrambled around, the cameras continued to run. Kyle sat motionless, staring forward. Eventually, the fires were all put out. Kyle's producer shut off the broadcast, leaving Kyle's vacant stare as the final frame. Kyle's ratings skyrocketed. Techno Jim became a staple on the show, often ending up destroyed by the end of each episode. Although Rachel did not come back on the show, her cardboard portrayal did. Rachel was very popular. The ending, Kyle interviewed Rachel, or who's allegedly Rachel. Alright, I think we have time to try at least 1 or 2 more endings, so let's reset again. Kyle's first decision in the morning was made wisely. We're going to get out of bed. Kyle exited his bed and took a quick glance around his bedroom. We need to get dressed, and I'm going to go with skunk pasties, because that's exactly what you want to see on TV. Kyle chose the pasties made out of mashed skunk flesh. Getting the slimy garments to stay proved difficult, so Kyle opted to stick them on his body with hot glue. Kyle returned to the center of the bedroom. All right, we have some time. Let's write this interview. And we're going to play this straight. Are you a mother? Kyle will ask. What are some diet tips? What's your funniest story? What's your guilty pleasure? And we're all done. Now, we still need to eat, so go to the hallway. Time to go to the kitchen. Kyle walked to the center of the kitchen. Open the fridge. Well, if we're going crazy, let's just kind of go completely there. We're going to eat the fridge. Kyle pointed his neck directly upwards and hoisted the fridge on top of his face. Somehow, miraculously, he wrapped his mouth around the device. He started to swallow. In one slow, horrible movement, the fridge slid down Kyle's throat. After many gurgles, pops, and snaps, Kyle felt relatively sure the fridge would not come back out. Kyle walked to the center of the kitchen. Okay, so we're full now. That's good. Let's go visit our neighbor. So we're going to leave, visit our neighbor, and we're going to consume Gabby, because I don't think kitchen appliances are just that filling. Kyle unhinged his jaw and swallowed Gabby whole. Job done, Kyle returned to the middle of the street. Kyle walked out into the middle of the road and took a long pondering look around him. We're just going to return to the apartment because it's time for my interview with Rachel. Kyle hurried to the set. Sitting across from his host chair was a glamorous woman with an air of genuinity. As Kyle approached her, Rachel looked up and smiled. "Good evening, Kyle," she said, looking him in the eyes. "I've been looking forward to being here." Kyle responded by answering politely. I as well, Rachel," he answered Kyle, extending his hand in greeting. "You are a most welcome guest." After other mild exchange of pleasantries, Kyle and Rachel were prompted to take their places for the broadcast. A moment after seating, the studio lights brightened and the cameras clicked on. "Good evening, everyone," said Kyle, looking at the camera. "Welcome back to Stay Up Late with Kyle." Kyle vomited all of the horrible things he had eaten earlier onto the floor. Rachel looked at Kyle concerned, gave a couple of coughs, and decided to play it cool and keep the show running. Kyle stopped, then vomited again, and then continued with a shaky voice. "Tonight I have the pleasure of interviewing the lovely Rachel May, who needs no more introduction." Kyle motioned to Rachel, who smiled and waved at the camera. "Hello, Kyle," she said. "I'm glad to be here." "Well, I'm sure we'll have a lot to discuss, so we might as well dive right in." "I'm very ready," said Rachel with a winning smile. And now for the boring, plain interview questions. We already know what her diet tips are. After reading his final question, Kyle looked up from his paper. "Well, Rachel," he said, "I think that's all I was planning on asking you." "If that's the case, Kyle, may I ask something in return?" asked Rachel, smiling once more. "What on earth are you wearing? And are they made of skunks?" Before Kyle could answer, the camera shut down. The broadcast was over. Kyle returned home knowing the interview had gone well, but as he lay in bed and drifted to sleep, he felt that perhaps something was still missing. Well, that's a plain one. One more for the road. Let's get dressed, but we need a killer outfit. Jeans and swimming goggles. Okay, after choosing to scavenge, Kyle discovers the corpse of Harry, a friend that had gone missing years ago while at Kyle's house. Kyle was glad to see him again, but was unsure of whether to interrupt such an important day with Harry business. We should probably deal with this as soon as possible. Kyle hoisted Harry onto his shoulder and took him outside. Kyle began dragging Harry's body down the street, drawing many, many stairs. Kyle knew exactly where he needed to take Harry's corpse. On a lovely play date, just the two of them. Kyle and Harry started at the arcade. Kyle used Harry's arms to operate the joysticks and push buttons. After 5 or 6 different games, the two friends had enough tickets for a single candy bar. They took their prize to the local park for eating. Kyle tried to feed some of the chocolate bar to Harry, but Harry seemed to not have an appetite. Well, being a corpse will do that. After eating, Kyle noticed a nearby playground. He dragged Harry over. Kyle tried to figure out a way to swing Harry on the swing set, but lacking the ability to grip, Harry kept falling out. Instead, Kyle started to lug Harry to the top of the slide and shove him down time and time again. Finally, Kyle took Harry to the movies to see as many popular films as their pocket change allowed. Kyle quickly found that he had no pocket change, so he searched through Harry's corpse until he found his wallet. Kyle bought 2 tickets to A Love Romance. After getting inside, Kyle left Harry to go find a restroom. By the time Kyle had finished using the restroom, he'd forgotten that he'd brought Harry along. Kyle watched A Love Romance by himself, Harry's corpse sat on a bench at the atrium. While Kyle was in the movie, a beautiful thing happened. Harry's corpse, imbued with the power of friendship and love, was reanimated. Harry's old, rotten flesh gained color and life. His fingernails regrew. His missing eye came back. By the time the movie was over, Harry was able to greet Kyle with a large, friendly hug as his old self. Kyle was confused but delighted that his long-lost friend met him on his way out of the theater. The two made plans to get drinks together and parted ways for the day. Kyle returned home, forgetting about the interview with Rachel, because obviously the power of friendship is way more important. Kyle helped a friend, and I think that's a good place to wrap everything up. We managed to unlock 2 new endings. We didn't quite get one to come out the way I thought it was, but I still had a lot of fun with this. I always like this. It's a quick way to kill a little time, have a little fun, and just keep poking around at this game to see what crazy endings the game creator had come up with. If you've enjoyed this video just as much as I have making it, please remember to leave a like, subscribe, drop me a comment, let me know what you think down below, and ring the notification bell. That way you know when I'm uploading new content. I am going to go ahead and wrap up this video. I hope you've enjoyed, and I'll talk to you next time.